which has seemingly for the last few years been a little more diverse, but also film is still a relative film in Hollywood in general are still a relatively white establishment. That is not against the fact, right? The fact is the Oscars and the Academy are some of the most uh, white, so to speak, white establishments that I've seen. And I think this leads me to that question of like, do the Oscars have a type? Do the Oscars have a type? In that, are the movies that they select very reminiscent of specific types? And the answer is, I think the Oscars 100% have a type. I've spent some time, and to do this, like I thought I would conduct like my version of a quote unquote scientific study, right? I examined kind of all of the various Best Picture nominees in the last 6 to 7 years, somewhere around there. I went through like a big list, and and what I found is I went through all the plot synopses and various things, and I'd seen quite a few of the movies, and so I was like, okay, let me split. Like, can we split all of these movies into very specific categories? And the answer is most of these movies fit into one of three boxes. And I want to explain to you these three boxes real quick. So the three boxes that I've separated the Oscars quote unquote type into are historical period pieces being one box, the second box being the woke category, which is a relatively new category. This isn't sort of a trend that has stuck with the Oscars for a while because, wokeness often has come with recent cultural phenomenon. And the third is life, coming of age, growing up, various relatable aspects to different like real life stories, realistic life fiction. That's the third category. So let's go through the first category, right? Historical period pieces. In my opinion, I think historical period pieces are a whole category of a lot of movies that kind of take you back to a specific era in time, and they're done in a beautiful way because it's history is one of those things where when you read it it's one thing, but when you see it on the screen it's another thing. It's like your imagination is coming to life because you learn history in the classroom and you learn about all these events, but seeing it actually captured on screen is like a whole other thing. It just captures your whole mind. And so I could see why historical period pieces are sort of a type of the Oscars. It's true, right? I mean, look at the historical period pieces. The Trial of the Chicago 7 was one of them. That was like this. That was in the 21st century. The Darkest Hour, which is about Winston Churchill in World War II. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I think really related to the Academy because of the fact that it took place in 1950s Hollywood, and it's like this old-timey kind of Hollywood vibe and the silent film era and all of these things. Green Book, which take place during like segregation and Jim Crow laws. Hacksaw Ridge, which is a World War II movie. Judas and the Black Messiah, which is like during the Black Panther movement and all of these things in the 1960s. And then The Favorite, which is like a late 19th century film that takes place in Britain. So you are able to do beautiful costumes with the Queen and all of these things. And the critics love that. They eat that stuff up. You notice historical films always get a little bonus. They get a little bump compared to the other types of movies. And then you got the woke category, right? The woke category has been more popular, I would say, in the last few years than it has been in the past. And this is probably because of the whole movement of diversity in Hollywood and showing off these diverse group stories. And the movies you get with with this category are like Minari, which is a film about an Asian American family moving to the States. And then you have Parasite, which is a South Korean film, which is great, by the way. Like, I'm not saying that these movies are bad and that they deserve to be, taken off, but I'm just saying like Oscars just tend to like see these movies as the best because they're within their various types and all of that. Black Klansman. I personally thought this movie was just a diversity ploy. Didn't win Best Picture. I never thought it had a shot. I didn't think it was a good movie at all. But if you have an opinion on Black Klansman, I would love to hear it. Roma, which is actually a really good movie. I thought it did a really good job of like portraying a certain culture that doesn't get to be portrayed a lot in media. And I thought that it did a really good job. Moonlight, Fences, both African-American films of sorts. Hidden Figures, also based on African American women. Promising Young Woman, which is based on a white woman, but also a woman nonetheless. And that's kind of more of a diverse perspective than we're used to seeing in Hollywood. So those types of movies are kind of the woke category, where it's like bringing out groups that maybe don't get the star of the show a lot of the time, right? So that's kind of category number 2, which is woke. It could be woke stories, but also woke identity politics within the film. I mean, Slumdog Millionaire won Best Picture in 2009, and I could argue that that was kind of the start of the woke movement right there, of like, Slumdog Millionaire, dude. It's a good movie. Was it a Best Picture movie? Uh, if that movie was American and about like a really like rough neighborhood in Detroit, does it win $1 million? Or sorry, not win $1 million. I'm getting confused with the plot line. Like if that movie was about a tough neighborhood in Detroit and about an inner city kid, like, does it win Best Picture? I don't know. I'm not trying to hate on Slumdog. You know, Slumdog is like one of the big claims to fame of the Indian American community here in the States. So not trying to shit on it, but it's kind of an overrated movie. You watch it back again, I don't get the hype. I really don't. Not a big fan of that movie. Then you have the third category, which is life, right? The life category is like the coming of age, sort of a period of time in your life where you're confused and you're forced to kind of go through this crisis and all of these things and encounter the perils of growing up, and it's super relatable. And films in this category tend to be movies and these are all Best Picture nominees, by the way. The Father, which I've never seen, but it's got Anthony Hopkins in it. Nomadland, which is like about a woman who's on a midlife crisis and travels the world in her van. And I've heard this movie was not very good. Boyhood, which I personally love, which is about a kid growing up. Not a lot of people like the movie, though. I like it. Not a lot of other people like it, though. Marriage Story, which is about a couple getting married and staying together and getting divorced and all of these things. Lady Bird, which is about a high school senior going to college and all of these things. Sound of Metal, which is about a drummer that can barely hear. And he's a heavy metal drummer, and just his life. Star is Born, which is about like growing and finding yourself through music. Whiplash, which is like finding yourself through pushing yourself. It's like a young kid and his really hard ass music mentor kind of coming together. Dallas Buyers Club, which is more of like a life sort of film with Jared Leto and Matthew McConaughey. And then Coda, which is about this like girl who is with her like a high school age girl who's like whose family is deaf and does not speak English. They speak sign language. And so communicating through those barriers. So it's like those life movies where it's like you have to find a way to get through the obstacles of your ever present life and all of these things, right? That type of movie is definitely another type of the Oscars. So the Oscars, so now that we've established kind of the 3 categories of the Oscars, right? They've been doing this for years. It's evident. I've pointed out movies from the past 6 to 7 years, and you can group them in various categories and all of these things. And some of the movies actually I didn't point out, but they actually intersect multiple of these boxes. They check the life box and maybe a period piece. And they check maybe the woke box and the life box, or the woke box and the period piece, right? Like Trial of Chicago 7. It could be considered a woke movie, but also a period piece. And so, yeah, there's intersections between the types, I would say. And as usual, we have another award show that really just depends on whatever Variety magazine and whatever critics like. So that should be the real question, in my opinion, is not who is getting the Oscars, right? It's not the movie's faults that they're getting nominated. They're just doing their job and making film, but rather who is selecting these stories to get the profile, to get the national attention, to get the awards that they get. I feel like the Oscars has done a slightly better job. I want to give them a little bit of credit in terms of picking movies that the audiences like do connect to as well. I mean, look at like Don't Look Up got nominated for Best Picture this year, which is like a little Netflix kind of comedy flick that did pretty well. But it's for the most part, it's been a lot of just the same kind of art house films that like have like $1 million budget and aren't seen by a lot of people. For the most part, right? King Richard is like one of the ones that is not part of that category, right? I feel like a lot of people saw that. I feel like a lot of people were like, damn, Will Smith was a god in that movie, and he was really good. But yeah, like I feel like it's more so It's more of a lot of like there's a movie called Belfast that was nominated this year. Like everyone's probably looking at me like, what the fuck is Belfast? Like no one has seen that movie. Maybe like 3 or 4 people have seen Belfast. I'm sorry, Kenneth Branagh. I'm sorry to all the people that were in the movie. Not a lot of people have seen your movie Belfast. Maybe it's COVID. Maybe it's the fact that maybe it's not that well popular of a movie with Americans. But the Oscars selected them for Best Picture, so apparently they're one of the best movies in the world right now. So I don't know what that means, right? But I think there are a lot of movies that don't get Oscar noms because they are a certain type of movie. A lot of comedies, a lot of maybe horror films as well, maybe less serious films. I feel like all the Oscar movies tend to be very dramatic. They tend to be very serious. There's not a lot of like lighthearted. There's not a lot of comedy, like different genres of films. I would love to see more of like a mix up within the Best Picture nominee and not just the same stuff over the years. I'm not a big fan of this year, but here, I mean, listen, besides the Oscars having a type, and the Oscars obviously having a type with their directors too, like, let's be real, if you're Quentin Tarantino, Martin Scorsese, Adam McKay, like, you're going to get nominated no matter what. It doesn't matter what movie you put out there, you're pretty much guaranteed a spot in the movies. Let's be real, right? If you're not one of those directors, if you're not one of those kind of big name actors, you have very little shot at getting nominated an Oscar. It's tough. Your movie has to be in one of those 3 boxes, or you got to have a really big name cast or big name directors to like get the recognition that you would get at the Oscars. And so that leads me to the question of like, do the Oscars need change? Which my answer to it is yeah, absolutely it needs change. But where does that change come from, Anuj? How can you just change the freaking Oscars that have been around for 70 years? How do you expect to do that? And let me tell you the answer. The answer is the Academy. Let's take a look at the Academy for a second, right? I did some research on the Academy, and I want to tell you guys what I think. The average age of the members of the Academy from the Oscars, which is like the Academy is like the people that select the nominees and then select the winners. The average age is like 63 of the people on the Academy. The average age of people who watch movies is like 28 or is like 30, right? Listen, I know there's old people that watch movies, and I'm not saying 63 is old. My dad's like 58. He's not old. He's pretty old. Never mind. But 63 is not that old in the grand scheme of things now. But like a lot of younger people are watching movies, and the fact is, like, older people tend to have the same type of movie. Like, I look at the movies my dad watches, and I look at the movies that like maybe me and my other peers watch. The movies my dad watches are like historical period pieces. He loves Planet Earth documentaries, right? He really likes movies that are slow. He likes Clint Eastwood. He likes Westerns. He likes he has a very specific taste of movie. And if the average age of the Academy is 63 years old, they kind of have a uber specific taste of what they're looking for. So it's not necessarily going to be reflective in the actual category itself. If it's a bunch of 63-year-old people, and most of these people are men, as you could probably think, and the majority race is white. So of course they love all the historical movies. Dude, historical movies are just beloved by white people. It's a fact. And the woke category, listen, I think there's a lot of great woke movies, but at the same time, it's an overcorrection. It's an over freaking correction. Black Klansman should not have been nominated for Best Picture 3 years ago or whenever it was nominated. I think it was 3 years ago. Wasn't that good a movie? Quite frankly, wasn't that good a movie? Fences, same thing. Wasn't that great a movie? I mean, you look at the life categories, like Marriage Story it was mid. It wasn't that good a movie. Like, I don't know. It seems to be like a very similar type of movie that's getting nominated that doesn't resonate with the people that actually are going to the theaters and spending their money and watching it. That's just my opinion, though. And it's kind of funny, right? Because entertainment is going through a revolution right now when it comes to content. You're seeing so many diverse faces and backgrounds and sexualities and genders and all of these things, and it's super sick. But have we ever still considered that the top of entertainment is still hella white? It's still hella homogenous. It's the same people over and over again. The executives tend to be just old white men to be like, if you think about it, the people who are controlling the content are old white men for the most part. We need to figure out a way to not only just have the talent be diverse, because the talent is very diverse. We right now we are at a point where our content and our talent is super diverse, and that's great. But we need to figure out a way to get the executives and the top level staff, the people who are actually making decisions, to be diverse too, right? It works the same way in every business. You can't just have, like, your talent can be as diverse as it wants, but at the end of the day, if your top board is super not homogenous, same diversity, you're not going to get the reflection of the industry that you may have thought. And that's true. And you're seeing that with the Oscars here. The talent's changing, but the executives aren't. And the movies that are getting national attention, Belfast, not to shit on Belfast, I'm sure it's a good movie. Like, a lot of the movies you see go look up the 2022 Best Picture nominees. It's not really widely representative of probably the movies you watched this year. Is there a reason for that? I don't know. But also, I feel like the audience's perception of things should have some sort of view. And it shouldn't be just these art house flicks that are watched by maybe 5 people. I don't know. It's just a thought. But I think that we need to work on getting more diverse faces into the Academy, not just the same old dudes who have watched these movies for years and who have continued to put out similar nominees for Best Picture. The Oscars are getting better. I'm not saying they're getting worse. It's definitely gotten a lot better. Back in 2016, there wasn't a single 2016 or 2017. I was in high school. Not a single black actor was nominated for an Oscar. That's fucking ridiculous. And there were a lot of great movies that year with black actors. Okay, it's not like there wasn't. So a lot of stuff. And the Oscars have done a lot better. But I'm saying there's still a long way to go. Let's work on getting more younger, diverse faces. Let's put some more like younger people up in there to get more of a perspective of the wide audiences that are actually watching films rather than, a select 1%.